Recording first of all. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us if you're here live. If you're not watching us live, then thank you very much for watching the recording, because I know how important it is that we do watch these things in due course. So thank you for joining us again today. It's a focus on women's health, and you'll be glad to know that it's not me mansplaining about women's health. We've actually got some properly qualified people, as in women, to talk about women's health issues. So we're going to be talking about particularly peri-menopause, menopause, pain, memory, and sleep. So to help me with these things, we've got some beautiful people, Joe Crouchman, Hannah Jago, and joining us a little bit later on is Caroline Day, who is a menopause expert. So we'll get some great information from those people later on. So before we start with the topic of what specific things we're looking to try and help people with, I thought it'd be useful just to give you an indication of the types of technology we have available to us to help us to cope with these things. Now, at all stages during this call today, we will not make any claims that these pieces of wearable neurotechnology will help to diagnose, treat, or prevent any specific illness. Again, we're going to talk about the types of symptoms that people have and talk about how people have had those symptoms reduced by wearing this technology. So the first piece of technology we have is what's called human performance technology. In its simplest form, it is in a sock. So this is an example of a sock, and you can see the red bit at the bottom, and that's purely a pattern. And the pattern is used to break up the signal that's going to the brain. I'm not going to go into any great detail about that, but it causes your brain to receive a better quality signal from the periphery, calms it down, and then the brain can do some great things. So another element of the whole setting we have is these insoles. And you can see the insoles are fairly flat. They've just got a raised element around the back to fit inside your shoe. And the most important part of the insole is this part at the bottom, which you can just about see there has like a fingerprint pattern at the bottom. And it's that pattern that interrupts the neuronal system's messaging from the periphery, as in your feet, through to the central nervous system, and causes that calming down effect inside the brain stem. Another piece of the system we have again is this thing called an HPT patch. Harmony patch, to call it another thing, but human performance technology patch. You can just about see the pattern on there, but not very well in this lighting conditions. Beautiful summer outside. We're stuck indoors in the longest day. Bad planning, Stuart. Really, really bad planning. Anyway, this patch is exactly the same thing as the socks and the insoles. You simply wear it on the inside of your forearm for the first 48 hours, and then you can wear it anywhere on your body after that time. And again, it is exactly the same thing, calms down the brainstem. The brainstem then goes into calmness. The rest of the brain can be optimized across the 52 different Brodmann or working areas of the brain. So for an example, if you've got high anxiety, which is the front of the brain, a bit of depression at the back, they're firing off really quickly. By wearing this technology, it calms the brain down and it slows down those fast firing areas and speeds up some slow firing areas. And we know this because of proven it by brain scans that have been done on live people, which is a really good thing to have happen. So that's kind of the start point, is the human performance technology in the form of socks, insoles, and patches. The next thing we have is, I've got a rather natty one on here with the Batman logo on it, but it's an e-smarter sleeve. So basically, you put this smarter sleeve onto your dominant forearm, and it will have exactly the same. It will help to put some attention and focus into your brain. So this is the pattern on the inside of the e-smarter sleeve. You can see there it's a raised pattern. So this basically stimulates the parts of the brain associated with attention, focus, and concentration. So again, we'll talk about some of those things in the conversation later on. So we've got the two things put together, human performance technology and the e-smarter sleeve. We also have two other things which are quite important as well when we're talking about women's health issues. So we have a special patch available, which is a REM patch, REM standing for rapid eye movement patch, and it talks about sleep. So this patch is exactly the same size as the human performance technology, has a slightly different pattern because it works in a slightly different way. So very simply, you apply this to the back of your neck or under your armpit, and you will be helped, your system will be helped to go through the 3 cycles of sleep. That is REM sleep, deep sleep, light REM sleep, and of course awaking in the morning as well, hopefully very refreshed and lively. And certainly from a personal experience, I've found that this REM patch, if I wake up in the middle of the night because of a noise or something else happening, stop stealing those bloody covers off me. I find myself able to go back to sleep again really quickly with the aid of this patch. And the other one that's really important in terms of women's health is this new sock, which is called the Boomi sock. BOOMHI, slightly different pattern at the bottom. It's enhanced mood technology. So basically, it helps the mood of you to be elevated, which is obviously the title itself. The bonus is it's made from recycled plastic bottles. So this one will be about 2 slightly taller ones up to 3 recycled plastic bottles. They also feel really, really comfortable. And there's also a bonus if you get a tree planted in your honor when you buy these socks as well. So that's the different types of technology. There are other technologies available, but these are the main ones that apply to what we're talking about today in terms of women's health. So at this point, I'll ask Joe Crouchman and Hannah to unmute themselves, and we'll introduce those two. Hannah Jago has been working with a lot of fellow business people over the last 2 and a bit years and helping them to gain the benefits of this technology. So Hannah, why don't you start off by telling us your stories about how you've been helping people and what kind of things you're seeing people changing with?
Yeah, thank you, Stuart, for hosting this as well and allowing us to kind of bring our experience to the table because, you know, for me, I am 50 and I kind of started going through the menopause when I was about 43, I would say. You know, you get the odd hot flush, you start to see some mood changes and, you know, your health starts to change a bit, you know, for us women in that sort of time. And it's not one of the things we sort of talk about a lot, or we do, and we don't really know what to do. And of course, a lot of people will just head straight for the doctors and say, right, I need patches and I need this. And for me personally, I'm not anti-medicine. I'm just pro-natural choice is how I would say it. And I'm always looking for, you know, a natural solution or a more holistic solution. And for me, the last 2 or 3 years have been a lot worse, I think, because of these square things that we're looking at. Because what I've found, and I'm seeing it in a lot of women in my sort of age bracket who are maybe business owners, self-employed, working from home, there's a lot of brain fog issues going on is particularly what I'm seeing, and it's what I was experiencing definitely in the last 2 years. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, we all got on Zoom and we made it, we were very resourceful and got on with it. But what that meant is we went from maybe doing 1 or 2 Zooms a week to maybe 3 or 4 a day. And suddenly my brain was really being fried by this level of computer work and just not really being able to think and focus on what I was doing. And I was hearing that in my networks as well. A lot of women just saying, God, I've written my to-do list and I'm just not even getting anywhere near it, you know. And first of all, for me, I was wearing the socks because that is a natural place for everybody to start, in my view. You know, that's working on the whole body. But then as these symptoms were getting bigger and bigger, and especially the brain fog, just not being able to think and focus, that's when I added the sleeve. And it was probably about 6 months into my Vox Life journey that I added that. And what I noticed straight away was a reduction in that sort of crazy adrenaline that comes after being on lots of calls where you're trying to focus. And I was able to think a lot clearer and get work done. You know, I'm easily distracted. I'm a very visual person, so I see things and I can go off at, you know, a million miles an hour. But what I was finding was it was helping me to focus. And a lot of the women that I've been helping, especially, I mean, I'm not just in women's networks, but there's a lot of women in the network businesses. A lot of them have started with the socks and then they've added on the sleeve. And it's when they add the sleeve in that they say to me their symptoms really start to calm down. It's more about the brain fog than anything. The hot flushes, I'm not so sure about that in terms of the sleeve, but the socks I think can really help with that. But if I give you just one little example, I've got a lady, Sam, who, I mean, she was really struggling with sleep, the brain fog. And she said, you know, she tried lots and lots of different remedies at great cost, is how she worded that. You know, couldn't sleep through the night. I'd be awake for anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, and struggling as a mum of two, that was really impacting on her day. And then she said, enter Vox Life, you know, it's like an act in a play. And she said, you know, as soon as I started wearing these socks, all of my sleep got better. And she said, and then when you encouraged me to try the sleeve, that's when I found my businesses just got, and she says, she just got her shit together. Because she said, I wasn't really, you know, functioning up until that point. She says, I feel like I've got my sanity back. Try them, they're incredible. And she says, as for the sleeve, I would never take that off now in the day. I feel like I've got it together. Excuse the profanities, but you know, sometimes we have to get the point across. So yeah, for me, it's about that brain fog, helping you focus, the memory side of things for sure, and just having that better communication. And I think especially as women, I'm not saying men don't, but I'm finding a lot of women are juggling lots of things. You know, we're doing the school run, then we've got the after clubs, then we're cooking the dinner, and then we're running our business, and we've got all these different baskets. And is it any wonder that we struggle with that? So, you know, an incredible difference. And yeah, I have a very nice tan, so you can tell I'm actually wearing it all day, every day. So yeah, really, really life-changing.
Yeah, brilliant. Hannah, what would you recommend to people that say they would can you wear the sleeve at night, for example? Because you can obviously wear the socks in bed at night, yep. And certainly the people that I've seen getting the most benefit, and including myself, is when I wear the socks in bed at night. Yes. I don't personally wear a sleeve in bed at night, but what would you say to that?
I would say it can't hurt to try it. I think the thing with the sleeve is it's working on your cognition. And at night, your cognition is not doing its thing, it's resting. And saying that, I have worn it a couple of times at night where my brain has just been chattering about the day. So there have been a couple of times when I have worn the sleeve, and it has helped me to sleep. But I think obviously we've got something like the REM patch that can really help with that. I know for me, I've got quite a sort of ADHD tendency in my brain, and I think that's definitely something that helps with this. And again, I think there are a lot of women, especially women who are undiagnosed in that side, and obviously, you know, that's not what this discussion is about, but I think it's potentially linked. And so I think for me, it helps to calm that brain. And it is sort of the last thing I take off at night, you know, before I go to sleep, because my brain is just whirring and whirring. But I don't think it can hurt to wear it. That's the main thing I would say.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you very much. And Joe and Hannah, we had a shared phone call at the weekend. Was it the weekend, or I can't remember when it was?
I've no idea what day it is.
Thank you. Yeah. Even though I've got a sleeve on and the socks on, I still can't remember what day it is. Sometimes just all seems very similar.
Joys of being self-employed.
especially when the sun's out. So we had this group chat, and basically there was 3 of us on the call. And I could not get a word in edgewise as these two were just chattering on about things that were happening. It's such an important conversation, I think, to share, because they shared a lot of information about what they were feeling, what they were experiencing, and how they got the benefits from the technology. So, Joe, why don't you start us off talking about your experience before and including technology?
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Stuart, once again for putting this call on. So go back sort of 3.5 years, I suppose, was the time I started to lose my mojo, really. And I'd always been positive and bubbly, and I was in direct sales, I was out partying and doing all different sorts of things. And things were changing, and my memory was getting atrocious. I was being convinced that I'd got early stage onset of Alzheimer's, and it was a bit of a worrying time, really. I got invited along to a Vox Life meeting. So this was just before COVID hit, actually, and went along. And the key thing I heard was, we can reduce the incidence of seniors falling up to 8 times. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I need to get involved. I need to get this tech on my parents. They're in their late 70s, early 80s, and I wanted to know that I was helping them. So I got product for them. I started to wear the socks for myself, and literally 2 weeks before that, I'd had a conversation with my GP, because I'd suddenly clicked that actually what I was going through was the perimenopause, and the depression side of things nobody talks about, the anxiety levels and things nobody really talks about, because when people talk about the menopause, it's very much talking about hot flushes, because that's a physical thing people can see. It's, you know, an instant thing. It's something that for men can be laughable, and I suppose the women can joke a bit about it. But in my head, I always had, well, you don't have hot flushes, so it's not the menopause, because I thought the hot flushes was the major thing with the menopause. But in reality, it's not. It's just that's the one thing that's easy to talk about. Everyone, you know, they don't talk about all the other aches, pains, atrophy, all different sorts of things that can go on with the female body. And obviously a lot of that you don't want to talk about publicly either. And so I did then, I'd listened to a few podcasts and a few, I listened to some audiobooks about the menopause, and I thought, actually, this whole emotional thing that I'm feeling is actually menopause coming on. And the GP agreed with me and said, go and look at this website, go and work out how you want to receive your HRT. Well, 2 weeks later, I've been wearing the socks. At that point, we didn't have the sleeve in the UK, was wearing the socks. And I suddenly thought, hang on, I haven't even thought about HRT, because actually I'm feeling so different about myself. Now, I also know it's because I was suddenly then thrown into this amazing group of people within Fox Life who, you know, the positivity and everything that comes from that as well was a big factor in how I felt. I felt I had a bit of direction and things like that, but I didn't have the aches and pains that had gone along with the depression and the anxiety. I do have a family that can be quite prone to arthritis, and in the mornings I'd wake up, my ankles would, you know, I'd just sort of sit on the edge of the bed for a while just to get my ankles sort of move in before I'd get up to go off into the bathroom. But I suddenly realised I wasn't needing to do that. I was literally getting out of bed really quite sprightly. So even though I've never felt that my sleep has suffered, I feel I have better sleep now. I just suddenly thought, right, you know, I'm remembering things, that brain fog is sort of lifting a bit. And I never went down the route of needing the HRT. And then a number of months later, the sleeve came out, and that just gave me so much more focus, and sort of gave me then direction that I needed. And it just, as Hannah said, you know, that muddled brain, you know, just suddenly feels more organized. So for me, it's helped me, or stopped me from needing to reach for HRT at this stage. You know, things can change, and, you know, we're not claiming it's going to stop, you know, everything. I've had a number of people using the HBT, the socks, who have seen a reduction in their migraines that were very much attributed to this time of big hormonal change within the body. And of course, what's controlling hormones? It's all going on up here in the brain. What are we doing? We're just, with the tech, helping the brain to work better. You know, we're letting it work out what it needs to do. And certainly for me, it's helped in that side of things. Did I get involved with the product, or, you know, start wearing the product because of the menopause? No, not at all. It's not something that's mentioned. We don't mention these particular conditions, but it's something that I then soon realised it was helping.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Jo. And it really is quite amazing. So I went to a, speaking for myself, I know I'm not a female and therefore talking on the wrong seminar, but I went to a networking thing this morning, and they said, who'd like to give a 10-minute talk about their business? And somebody said to me, go on, Stuart, do it. first time at a networking thing. So I stood up and talked for 10 minutes, just thought I'll bring loads of stories in, different people and whatever else. And then people afterwards said, I had no idea you could potentially help with that thing, or could it help with this thing as well? And just the more you have the conversation about the different symptoms that we feel, or the different brain fog, as we call it, symptoms arise in people, the more we have the opportunity to then explore with different people about trying it for themselves. And as you correctly said before, Hannah, if it can do no harm to people, why not give it a go? And that should be the start point, shouldn't it? If it can do no harm, and this has no contraindications whatsoever with people, so therefore does no harm, it's worth giving it a go if you can try it for yourself.
I think you're right there, Stuart. You know, it's a lot of people now are being very mindful about what they're taking. And I think, you know, when people say to me, well, I've seen you talk about these magic socks, as we kind of call them, and, you know, the technology, can it help with, you know, X, Y, and Z? And I usually say the answer is probably yes. Because, and they say, well, how do you know? And I'm like, well, it's working with your respiratory system. It's working with your circulatory system, your muscular system, you know, your blood system and your brain. If you've got all of those, then the answer is probably yes. You know? And it never ceases to amaze me being able to dip into the Vox Life testimonial group on Facebook and see testimonials. I mean, somebody asked me, can it help Hashimoto's and thyroid? And I went, probably yes, let's have a look. You know, typed it in and there it was. There were some testimonials. And I think that's the amazing thing about this business, is we've got so many resources to help us bring that solution to people who are struggling, who want to find a natural or a more realistic and holistic solution. And I think going forward in the world that we're finding ourselves in right now, as amazing as the NHS is, we know it's crumbling and we know it's not providing the service that people want. So we almost have an obligation to share that with people right now. And that's why it's always just such a pleasure when somebody says, you know, can it help me? And I said, well, let's find out. There's only one way to find out. Here's patch. You know, I mean, I've got the patch on today. I'm an absolute advocate of the socks. I don't take them off. I say to people, the only time I take them off is when I'm having a shower, and they go on even in the heat. You know, I have my little liner socks because they're not quite so hot for the summer, and I wear those at night. But today I thought, you know what, I'm wearing a dress, I just can't do socks. So I thought, right, I'll put the patch on. Do you know what? This has created 3 conversations today, because people are like, what's that patch you're wearing? People don't ask you that about your socks. They don't go, what are your socks doing? You know, so for me, I think it's always about helping that person understand that, like you said, Stuart, we're not going to say we're going to heal this or cure this. We're going to be aiding your body to do its natural repairing where possible. And for me, it's always about making sure that that person has the right product for the right thing, or the right product for the right task. So are they wearing athletic socks? Are they wearing wellness socks? Are they wearing the Boomy socks? I think we very much underrate these products, the Boomy especially. And for the slightly younger category of women who maybe haven't got to the menopause yet, but are having women's issues. I know my daughter's in that category. You know, periods are very heavy. She's 20, she's got a lifetime of it. She gets quite depressed around that time of the month. And with something like the Boomy sock, we've got that ability to help a slightly younger audience to manage those emotions, because they're going through those hormone changes as well. So I think we're able to help people at either end of this spectrum, which, you know, is not something we've necessarily thought about, but we've got something at our fingertips that can do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Joe, before we hit the lockdown, what was it you were doing as a practitioner role?
Yeah, so I do on-site massage. I go into offices and do massage. So what's been great with this product is I'm on my feet all the time. I'm chatting with people. I can't wear the sleeve whilst I'm doing it, unfortunately. But obviously my business then, when COVID hit, completely dived. We weren't allowed into offices and things like that. But for me now, the last few months, I'm back into offices and I'm back around people, hearing how people are getting on. And I now can give some add-ons to my massage treatment and suggest to people by trying this product. So it's kind of an add-on thing for me. But in fact, for me, it's you know, the first port of call. But obviously, it's getting out there and letting people know that. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And Hannah mentioned the Facebook testimonials group as well. And there's one of our Canadian colleagues called Kevin Duguay, who he went, I think it was 3 years ago, don't quote me on the exact figures, but he went to a Canadian college or university, and he worked with their girls rugby team. And he said that the coach was very open-minded to the technology. And he said that after the 1 year of wearing the technology, this girls rugby team then went to the national finals, which is the first time ever for that school in that particular province of Canada. And he said the other bonus of that was that actually all these girls, not only did they excel at rugby, but they also started to see their academic results increasing as well. So when you talked before, I think it was Hannah who mentioned about the wide broad spectrum we've got of people that we can appeal to with this technology. Absolutely. Girls at university, girls that are playing sport, girls that are doing public speaking and things like this, like me, for example, this morning. Can you give a 10-minute talk about your products? Of course I can. I didn't even feel anxious. I just thought, do you know what? Of course I can. And because I was wearing the socks and the sleeve, that anxiety zone wasn't firing off and creating that panic inside me. I just stood there and just naturally just spoke through the whole thing. Was even able to interact with people as well. And it's phenomenal, just the unknown benefits that people get from this technology sometimes. And again, Joe, when you talk to your people that you're going to the workplace with, again, you've got other things you can talk about in terms of not just the massage therapy and the great help you're giving them there as well. But again, you can look at other people and suggest that, you know, there may be ways of helping with working together or sitting or standing, whatever else, by using this technology.
Yeah, and very much, obviously, when I'm doing a role like that, I do a health check beforehand. And obviously, it's been 2.5 years since I've seen some of these people, or it's the first time I'm seeing these people. And so, you know, with my massage, there are contraindications. With this product, there are no contraindications. So there's very few actually for me with the massage side of things. But when I'm hearing people's problems, I want to know that physically, you know, I can be helping their muscles and getting their blood circulating, etc., and break down those knots in their shoulders or whatever. But actually up here, I can give them an alternative.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Hannah and Joe. Thank you very much indeed for what you just talked about there. Now, Caroline Day, I don't see you on here, but you may be the Samsung profile without a name on it. So if that is you, if you are on the call, can I please ask you to unmute yourself and come and say hello? This is the only dodgy bit of the call that I haven't properly prepared. Caroline, are you here?
Feels like a seance. Is anybody there?
We wish to contact somebody from the menopausal world. Caroline is she regularly gives talks about menopause, and when I heard that she was available for this call tonight, I just thought, you know what, we need to get her on here. And she was talking about all sorts of working conditions that you can ask for, and think it's not appropriate for this because we're predominantly focusing on the physical and mental health aspects rather than the workplace aspects. Okay, so I'll assume that Caroline's not here then. So again, just to reiterate for the people watching here live today and also on the replay, we make absolutely no claims about medical benefits or that it will fix certain things that you may have heard today already. It's the brain that does that, right? So all we're doing is we're helping the brain to calm down. The Brodmann working areas, functional areas, are then able to take control. So for example, pain, which is in the upper right center of the brain, the pain processing points up here. If you're feeling pain in your body, it's because these parts are receiving a signal it's either stronger or faster working than other indications in your body. So if you're feeling chronic pain, it's probably from that area here. By calming the area down, it then allows you to then look beyond the pain. The body will still deal with that in terms of sending the appropriate blood cells down to that area to fix it, but it won't be a preoccupying thought in your head. And that's how the technology works in a very simplistic way. So we have a bit of time available because Caroline's not here. Do we have any questions from people in the audience? that are watching here live today. If I can ask you to show your hand, and I'll invite you to unmute yourself. Okay, I've got a question for you then. This is purely from a male perspective, as you can well imagine, that's my speciality. So when you're wearing the socks, ladies, are you less irritable by stupid male comments, or do you find that doesn't change whatsoever?
Well, do you know what? Actually, personally, I do think my husband is extremely lucky, because I've never been particularly hormonal at certain times of the month. So he's been really fortunate there, actually. So I probably was starting to get a little bit more irritable a few years back, but no, I don't tend to have any of those moments so much now. But then I do have the socks on all the time, like Hannah. I wear them at night time. If it's hot, I might just have one on at night time, but I know about it if I haven't had one on. Yeah, he's probably more irritable than me, actually. So.
I have to say, I found the sleeve helped me with that enormously, in terms of that anxiety, that when you know something's happening in your brain, I think that's the thing that you can snap at, is responding. So, I mean, some of you know that on the call that my husband died recently, but a couple of months back, we'd gone to the shops and I didn't have my sleeve on. I'd forgotten to put it on. And I got out the car and I said, what do we need? And he said, apples, bananas, and rich tea biscuits. 3 things. And by the time I got out of the car, I said, what do we need? And he said, apples, bananas, and rich tea biscuits. I crossed over the road and got to the co-op, and I had to come back to the car and ask him a 3rd time. And he was like, what is wrong with you? Now, I'm a very intelligent human being. I have a great memory, but I didn't have my sleeve on. And so actually the irritation went the other way around, because I was getting irritable because I was like, why can't I remember 3 things? It's not difficult. So I think, and Chris, at New Year's Eve, I had some kind of illness that's going around, and I was in bed for 3 days. And again, I didn't have the sleeve on. And by the 3rd day, I can only describe my head as scrambled egg in a washing machine, okay, because my thoughts were just going like this. And I wanted to say to Chris, have we got any bread? I'd like some toast. I finally felt like eating, and I couldn't think what the word bread was. I mean, I literally couldn't think of the word bread. I mean, it's one of the staple diet of this country, and I couldn't think of the word bread, and I was getting really cross with myself. So actually, I think the irritation can go towards ourselves when we kind of in our head know that we're not going crazy, even though some other people might be going, are you going crazy? I've just told you that. But that irritation for me was inwards, and actually Chris was incredibly tolerable, because he was somebody, as a man, who understood a lot about female issues. You know, I think he was quite a rare breed in that sense, because I'm not speaking for you, Stuart, but I don't think a lot of men really understand, and that's not their fault, because as women, we don't either. And like Joe alluded to at the beginning, you know, we're just given this idea that, oh, menopause, hot flushes, you know, we're not really told about that other build-up, and it can be misdiagnosed as, well, you've got arthritis, you've got fibromyalgia, you just got this, and all of these things can be mislabeled, when actually what we're really experiencing is that early build-up. So I think we can all be forgiven for not necessarily knowing about this stuff. And it's only really through programs like, you know, Davina McCall has been doing on the television, and bringing that awareness that we can have this kind of conversation out in the open without it being embarrassing, and hopefully be that voice for younger women when it comes their turn to discuss these things openly and have those solutions. And I have to say, for me personally, I have recently gone on the HPT patch, because my hot flushes have got so bad. And like Joe said, we're all different. We have to find those levels for us that are right. And life had just got so unbearable that for me, the socks weren't necessarily working on that part of it. They were helping with the sleep, for definite. The sleeve was helping with the brain fog. but those hot flushes for me just took over. And like Joe, you know, I never suffered with periods and things like that badly when I was younger. And I think sometimes it can happen that way. You have an easy start and a bad end, or if you have them really awful when you're younger, you get a bit of an easier ride at the end.
And Hannah, you're using the REM patch, aren't you?
Yes, do you know what? I sort of use it in a little bit intermittently, I'll admit. If I'm having, especially when it's very hot like this, I struggle to sleep. So it's the sort of time I would use the patches. Or for me, I know after Chris died, I use the patches a lot more because obviously experiencing a bereavement, you know, the brain is a lot more alert. It's experiencing neurological changes that it's not used to. So I think there's definitely times when you can apply those kind of products to boost the body and aid it a bit more. And I did, after he died, I did use the patches a lot more. And I'll be very honest, I think the sleeve has helped me keep my sanity during this time, because, you know, that difficulty that I've gone through has given me, this has definitely helped me be less anxious. And I could have gone down a very depressive route, but I've tried to remain as positive as I can. And Joe, you just said it, being around positive people, positive businesses, positive influences, it does make a massive difference. And that's why I think I'm very grateful that this technology is in my life at the moment. I obviously don't know how it would have been without it, but it, like we say, Stuart, it can't hurt it, it can only enhance it. So I think,
and seeing people that are getting the benefit from these products, you know, that lifts everybody. Because you know that something that the technology is not simple, but something as simple as putting a sock on can be affecting your brain, and that does blow our brains just thinking about that. But it's the being able to help people, which just, you know, is you just can't beat it.
Okay, last question from me then. So I found
I think
that
Rosalie might have had a question.
Sorry, Rosalie, I'll come back to you.
I can't see where to put my hand up on the thing.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Rosalie. Hang on a second. So one of the benefits that I found for myself is that, and I didn't expect this, I didn't know it would happen whatsoever. I went down to a big presentation in Heathrow Airport, and I was wearing the socks. Again, the sleeve wasn't available at the time. And somebody said that people are experiencing improved memory. And I didn't give it a moment's thought, but actually having talked to me about that, I suddenly realized that about a year before that presentation, I had started to forget people's names. I had started to forget details and facts and place names, and I'd sit with a crossword and think, oh my, I know the answer, and quizzes and things, and I know I can't get it. And genuinely, since I've been wearing the socks and the sleeve, I found that names come flooding back to me straight away. I'm getting more questions right than wrong in quizzes, which is a great life-changing experience for me, and that sort of things. How have you found with your memory? Let's start with Hannah first.
Yeah, for me, I agree. My memory is definitely improved. Chris and I used to play a lot of Scrabble if we're talking about games, and I noticed in the last year, because we had a little tournament going, and I've always been good at playing Scrabble, but my Scrabble definitely improved in terms of remembering really complex words. I know it's a funny thing to share with you, but I'm the same. When we know a lot of people, the brain has got to sort of put all those people into filing cabinets in our head. And then, you know, suddenly we'll try and think, oh, who was that person I met at that network meeting, you know, and we try and go through the Rolodex. I don't really struggle with that anymore. You know, I like you, I seem to have that recall a lot quicker without having to go through the filing cabinet to mentally find it. So I would say for me, memory is definitely something that's improved. What about you, Joe?
Can I just stop you there, because we're going to get quite close to the 8:15 finish time, which I promised I would keep to. Sorry, Joe. We'll come back to you if you're finished. Rosalie, your question, please, or your comment.
I was just wondering, because I can't quite remember all the detail, but what about the Meta patch? Because it's hormonal. And just to put the balance out, I don't remember going through the menopause. Isn't that weird? Just hearing all your stuff. I used to, perhaps, if I did some domestic goddess work, hoovering or something, I'd probably have to take my cardigan off. I just felt a bit warm, but not hotty hot. And I suppose that was it for me. But it wasn't a heavy thing for me throughout my life. So I would say I've been very, very lucky considering that. And there was one, oh yes, and one other tip, I remember working with aromatherapy many years ago. We used to encourage people that did have symptoms to put some peppermint oil in a bit of soap, you know, liquid soap, and wash your hands under cold water, and it could help with those nasty elevations. But yeah, wear the tech.
If I cover the meta patch, I would say absolutely. I mean, you, Rosalie, have always expressed how it's helped you, and you realized your trousers were a little bit loose, you know, and I think that's definitely something that us women, as we get to that age, we may be a little bit more sedentary because we're not doing the school run so much anymore, so we might be changing how we're sitting and moving. But I think also naturally the body just kind of goes, you need a few extra pounds, because we want to protect your bones, because you might fall over a lot, you know, as you get older. I think it's just a natural thing that happens. And I know for me, you know, I know in this last 2 years, I've always been very, very skinny, and, you know, my body's kind of put on a stone, which I actually needed to do, but it's done it naturally. And I think for a lot of women, that when there's some extra weight, that can really start to play on the mind up here, and then they go through those yo-yo diets and go backwards and forwards. I think the meta patch is an excellent addition if that is an issue you may struggle with, or a person, I don't mean you, Rosalie, I mean in general, to allow the body to metabolize itself. And if some natural weight loss occurs with that, then that's a great benefit, which I know you've talked about in the past. So I think the meta patch is a great addition to put in the melting pot, you know, and this is why I said at the beginning, it's great to have a combination of products that helping your body in many different ways.
Perfect. So at this stage, it's really appropriate to say that if you're joining us on this call today, either live or recorded, you must speak to the person that introduced you to this call or invited you here today, or you're sitting along beside, and speak to them about the products, because they will be able to help you individually to tailor the technology to your specific requirements. So if, for example, you want to talk about weight harmonization, optimization, or talk about blood or anything else like that, then the person that introduced you to this call will be able to advise you best on that. And again, just to reiterate, we make absolutely no claims that these technology devices will help to diagnose, treat, or prevent any illness or disease. So with that in mind, thank you very much for attending the call live tonight. Thank you very much for Joe and Hannah, and also to Rosalie for contributing so well to the conversation. Yes, there are other technologies available, but if you speak to the person that introduced you to the call, then they'll be able to advise you much better about that. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening/day if you're watching this on repeat.